guys? Welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy. Sounds like he's probably, I'm going to guess, in his 50s or so. And he's going to share his story as well as seek my advice in the little situation he has going with his family. This is all about a guy. He's done very well for himself. He has very good money. He's worked very hard in his life, but at the same time lived cheap. And he's poured all his extra money into different investments around the world, grew a tremendous amount of wealth, and now he's using that wealth to help his kids and his family, both his kids and his nieces and nephews, get a full ride for their education. But his terms are that they have to major in something that's actually worthwhile and is going to give them a return in life. Not majoring in some BS subject like gender studies or philosophy or something like that and expect to do something with those things, okay? That was his terms, and all the kids in his family, his kids and the nieces and nephews, have agreed to this, except for one. The youngest, who he's seeking my advice for, is 18, and she is a raving effeminist at 18. And she hasn't even gone to a school yet and dealt with all the liberal bullshit they pour in these kids' heads. And she feels entitled to have him pay for her to go get a degree in gender studies at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark, and wants him to pay for it and pay for room and board and allowances and all this other shit that the other kids didn't get. And he's at a crossroads on what to do. Now, it's pretty obvious to me what to do, and obvious to you guys what to do and how to handle it, but he's still seeking my advice as well as the community's. And you're going to see here, guys, just so much disrespect she shows him, not just in person, but in front of all the other family members. And so I'm going to go through his thing here, and this is really showing, unfortunately, the times and how, unfortunately, these parents over the last generation have spoiled their kids to the point these kids feel so entitled to a living and all these other things, even though they show complete disrespect to their elders. It's unbelievable. So I'm going to go through this and try my best to bite my tongue until the end as to what this guy should do to handle this situation. So it starts off, he says, "Greetings, SSM. I've been following you since late 2020 and stuck around ever since. I find your content harsh but necessary in today's world, with a bit of comedic and philosophical segments scattered within each video. If more people shared the same mindset as you do, then maybe this world wouldn't be in the state that it is in right now. Apologies for any errors within this email. I'm Spanish American, but English is my secondary language. Introduction. I'm 47-year-old male. I'll get straight to the point here. I'm the middle child of 3 siblings, all sisters aside from myself. Back in the early to late 2000s, I graduated and moved to America to work as a software developer. I saved enough money for a majority of the decade and then went to Southeast Asia to invest in its growing e-commerce market and other businesses. Also during that time, I started a family of my own around 2000s. While on my purpose, I was able to become financially comfortable and finally move back to my home country in order to support my family. It was hard to be a young father and provider, but I was determined to give my children the best life that I could, and it paid off in the end. Good for you, man. Give them a good life, but not too good of a life that they then can't fend for themselves. It says, when I say I'm financially comfortable, I mean I can afford many luxuries. I could buy a new luxury car every year if I desired, and even afford a spacious home with a villa if I wanted to. However, I'm a simple man who lives below his means. I instead use my wealth to ensure that my children, as well as my nieces and nephew, all get head starts in life via college education. See that, guys? He said, I'm a simple man. I live beneath my means. So even though this guy obviously over time made more and more money, both through his job as well as investments that were growing, he still lived the same. That's what you guys got to do. You guys got to live cheap. And even if as you guys start making more money, as you start businesses, start building wealth through investments, you start moving up in your companies, I still want you guys to live where you were before, and that extra wealth can be invested and grown over time. The problem is that the majority of people, particularly in this country, live way above their means, okay? They could cut back if they wanted to, but as they make more money, they spend more money. It's ridiculous, okay? And these people bitch and complain that they have all these debts, can't get anywhere in life, and really, when you break it down, it boils down to their lack of self-discipline. But not this guy. I've agreed to support the college funds of all my nieces and nephew, with the condition being that they choose a college course or degree that will always be in demand and ensure their financial stability. That makes 100% sense. Now, trying to get a idealistic 18-year-old to agree to that, because most kids when they're 18, also being conditioned in this world that they are, don't quite get that. Because this is the generation that was going back for the last 25 years, that the parents decided it was better to be their buddy than to prepare them for a tough, competitive, harsh world. And these kids were, unfortunately, the last 20 years or so, when they turned 16, there was no rush for them to get a license because mom and dad would take me anywhere. Or when they were in college and high school, they didn't have to have a job because the parents wanted to have a good time and experience these things, blah, blah, blah. Why it's important for people to have jobs in high school and college, to learn responsibility, to learn some basic skills, to learn to juggle time working with school, those type of things. This generation doesn't have that because the parents were weak and they were bad parents because they didn't have those kids do that. When I was 16, I had a freaking job, and it wasn't about the money I made because I didn't make shit, but it was about teaching, juggling time, responsibility, basic skills. That's what's been lacking for so long. Anyhow, and so as any one of these kids have become, not all, because obviously not all like that, but a big majority are so spoiled, so entitled, and they're unprepared for the real world. Anyhow, he says most of them did not agree at first and wanted to follow their passions, which is all right, but I reminded them that I will not be paying for their courses and degrees that I don't agree with. Good for you for sticking with your guns on that. And you should do it with your last niece who you wrote me the story about. Eventually, all of them, except the youngest, who I'll get to on later, decided to pick courses that I approved of, and I willingly supported their educations. Good. See what happens when you have a take it or leave it attitude? Hey kids, I will pay for your tuition, free. But you're going to major in something good, not some bullshit subject that you're not going to make any money off of. Take it or leave it. They'll be like, okay, that's all you got to do. Problem is, most parents in this generation cave. Here's a list of their courses and careers organized oldest to youngest with fake names for clarity. Maria, the oldest niece, wanted to be a singer, but eventually decided to become an ENT doctor, which she is currently finishing up her studies. Grace, the sister Maria, was unsure of life, but became a dentist to humorously, jokingly, one of her sisters by becoming a doctor first. Raul, my son, currently taking up a major in biochemistry and minor in neuroscience for pre-med school. Julia, my daughter, taking up legal management for pre-law school. So far, so good. Marcus, youngest nephew, taking up legal management for pre-law school along with Julia. And lastly, Kellara, youngest niece and sister Marcus, who is dead set on taking, wait for it, gender studies. Smack. Now mention she's the youngest. And what happens usually with the youngest child in families? They're usually more spoiled. They usually get away with more because the parents are pretty much done raising kids, and they're the cute little ones, so I'm going to let them have their way. And wait till you see how much of an a-hole this niece is. And bro, I know you wrote this story, and I know you love your niece, but from what I've read this, obviously, I know how she behaves. She's a little a-hole. Where the issues started. And wait, guys, when I go through this, you're just want to jump into this. You're going to want to find this chick down and just shake her. It says, this January, we had a family reunion, and the topic of Claire's education came up, and she was finishing up her final year of senior high school. She and I got to talking, and she stopped me dead in my tracks when I suggested courses and said that I needed to stop with my patriarchal views and let her, as a woman, decide her future for herself. She said that this at the dinner table, and things got awkward. She told me that she believed that activism was a more important role or job now more than ever. She even implied that being an activist is on the same level as a doctor or lawyer. Yeah, because really, activism as opposed to a doctor that can save your life physically if something happens to you. More important. She wanted to go to Denmark to take up gender studies in the University of Copenhagen. She expected free boarding, travel, and an allowance like my children. He says my nieces and nephews did not get these things, only the free tuition. So she's saying this to you and speaking to you like this, not only to you as her uncle and adult, but in front of the whole family. Where does the gall of this come from? Where does this entitlement come from? This generation. Who raised this generation? Their a-hole parents. And this is obviously what everybody else is doing. Now, who raised this daughter? Your sister. So it's your sister's fault, her mother, that obviously allowed her to have this attitude. She raised her this way. The older siblings didn't sound like they're like this, but she is. I don't care if she's your niece. I don't care what the situation is, you don't speak to an adult like this. But it gets worse. I refused and told her that I did not think gender studies was a good degree to take up. She had a rebuttal saying that I needed to stop being scared of well-educated women and that it's time for me to start being woke to the injustices caused by the patriarchy. Again, she's saying this to her uncle. Our conversation did not progress any further after that, and it was just her saying that she is dead set on her choice of college and her choice course degree, and that I needed to pay for it because if I didn't, then I would be, wait for it, misogynistic. According to her, I shouldn't be this stingy with money since I have a lot of it, and I shouldn't use my money as a way to keep my position of power in the family, as it is toxic patriotism. Who put all this shit in her head? The people she hangs out with, probably the liberal teachers and all those other things. Speaking to her uncle this way, the guy that was going to give her a free ride. I'm sure you guys can probably figure out my answer to this guy's inevitable question on what to do, but I'll get to that in the end. After dinner, Clara had left to meet up with her friends. So I spoke with my sister, my daughter, and my nieces to hopefully get a better idea on what the heck Clara was on about. I bet you a year earlier she wasn't like this. Raul and Marcus didn't want to give their opinions, but did say that they found the situation funny and just went drinking in the other room. Say that's a mistake. See, they're letting her get away with this shit. That's why she is the way she is. They're just laughing at it, ha 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 ha. No, you're a family. You take this stuff seriously. You don't speak that disrespectfully to your uncle. If I talked that way when I was a kid to my uncle, my godfather, he would knock my ass out. If I spoke that way to my father, my mother, they'd knock my ass out. Because they were old school and didn't take any shit or disrespect from kids. And that's how it ought to be. Problem is, parents don't know how to lay down the law anymore. Because nowadays, the parents, they'd rather be their kid's best friend than be a real parent. Okay? Given the choice between being the kid's buddy and best friend, by having the kid pretty much be a total disrespectful F-up, and not be prepared for the world, versus being the tough parent, and the kid may think they're a jerk for a while, but prepare them for a tough world, far better to be the jerk. Maria, Grace, and Julia told me not to pay for her tuition as Clara wasn't willing to make the sacrifices that they made in order to gain a free education. Also that her views were very extreme and they do not agree with most of what she says. My sister, Clara and Marcus's mother, has begged me just to let Clara be the exception and pay for her college fund, as Clara wasn't as studious as her brother and cousins and probably will not get accepted to the University of Copenhagen without my financial support. They're begging you to give her a pass. She's acting like a disrespectful jerk and they think she deserves a pass. Why do you think she's acting this way to begin with? Because they, the parents, have let her get away with shit. It's bad parenting. So how would you help her if you then, in spite of how she was treating you, went against your own principles and let her go major some bullshit subject? You think she's going to get better or worse? Worse. I'm adamant on my decision of not paying for courses or degrees I don't approve of. That being said, I also love Clara like a daughter and I don't want to ruin our relationship. You're not ruining anything. She's ruining it. What she said to me is disrespectful, and I have never done anything to make her think that I viewed her as less of being a woman, so the situation just makes me so confused. SSM, what do you think I should do? Bro, you really are asking that question? Well, okay, I'll answer in a moment. What would you do if you had a daughter or niece that said these things about you and then demanded free college courses degree? Is she being entitled, or is this just the effects of being woke? If you or your audience have any suggestions, I will very much appreciate it. If you and your viewers have any questions, I'm willing to do a follow-up update. Thank you for your time, SSM, and have a good day. Okay, now the fun. I bit my lips as best as I could until the end. What do I think you should do? I think this girl needs a good slap in the face. That's what I think you should do. That's what I think. Talk to me that way. But obviously that's not going to happen. Here's what I would do. I wouldn't give her shit. For her to speak to you that way, and even worse, in front of the whole family, shows you her true character. If she's old enough, a legal adult, I'm assuming she's 18 at this point, to speak to you in such a way like that, because she's an adult, knows everything, then she is an adult enough to deal with the consequences of her actions. Because clearly, she's never had to face consequences of her actions because of her shitty parenting from your sister. You go let her get away with this, she's going to be 10 times worse. Guaranteed. I would sit her down, I would take her to her room and say, we're going to talk about the education and the tuition and all that. And let her come. Don't have anybody else there. And you can tell her flat out, no, you're not getting anything. After the disrespect you showed me and the way you treated me in front of the whole family, you're cut off. You're not getting anything. Even if you decide to major in becoming a doctor or a lawyer, you don't cross me like that. You don't speak to adults that way, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Because, bro, if you give in to her and you fund her to go major in this bullshit subject, let alone travel and allowances, not only are you going to get more disrespect from her, not only will you make her worse by enabling her behavior, you're going to lose the respect of your kids and the nieces and nephews who you lay down the law with. You cannot bend your principles for anything. And if that means that she hates you, so what? You have your kids, you got other nieces and nephews that love you and respect you. So if you have one jerk that doesn't, who cares? And if your siblings have an issue with it, tough shit. You worked hard for that money, you sacrificed, you lived beneath your means. So why should you let some jerk get a free ride and treat you that way? She'll be like this the rest of her life. The best thing, the greatest gift you could give her to help her in her future is give her nothing. Because that's what I would do. I would be way more harsh. I wouldn't have tolerated that shit right at the table in front of the family. But you obviously were blindsided and didn't see it coming. So, okay, I'll give you a pass there. You cannot give her what she wants. And if that means she's going to hate you forever, so be it. It's on her. Because like I said, if she's an adult enough to talk to you that way and have these opinions and act that way in front of the family, then she's adult enough to deal with the consequences of her actions. And that is a problem we have nowadays. Nobody deals with the consequences of their actions. This is bad parenting on hers. This is bad parenting on the whole generation of kids that act this way. So by you not giving her that money, that's going to teach her a major lesson. And if she is so strong and empowered and blah, 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 like she says she is, well, then she'll find a way to finance it herself. She'll find a way to get loans, and she'll be up to her eyeballs in debt, and that's her problem. That's what I think. And pretty much that's exactly what I would do. I think you'd be out of your mind, no disrespect to you, if you funded this thing. If you funded her and all that. So, and again, your question was, is she being entitled, or is this just effects of the being woke? It's both. She's entitled because that's the generation. She was entitled because she was raised by her parents to be entitled. She's the youngest. You know, usually the younger siblings generally are more spoiled. But also, yeah, this is the generation. But it doesn't matter. She's an adult now. You don't talk to adults that way. You don't show disrespect. Like I said, growing up, if I spoke to any of my elders that way, they'd knock me on my ass. And I would have deserved it. Because believe me, if I acted like her and they still gave me money, you think that would make me better? No, it'd make me worse. So you're doing her a favor by cutting her off, by not giving her that money. She'll hate you for a while. So what? Give her money, she'll become worse. You'll lose the respect of your kids, nieces, nephews. And if everybody else in the family is mad at you about that, and the only ones who are going to be mad at you are going to be her parents and her. So what? But we all have to make tough decisions sometimes with family, and that's what I think. So, there you go. Let me know how you handle this, but you know my opinion on this. I don't need to beat a dead horse here, but there you go. So, guys, perfect example of this generation. What happens when kids are spoiled, entitled, all that, you get this type of shit. So you can't allow them to act this way. And again, it's far better to be the tough parent and have the kid not like you for a while and prepare for a tough world than be their buddy and give them everything they want and have them ill-prepared for this world. Because we got a whole generation of kids that are completely ill-prepared because their parents wanted to be their buddy. It's a big mistake. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let this guy know what you think he ought to do about this. I'm sure you guys will not hide your opinions at all. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.